that gains such an enormous amount of respect from the staff when they see their leader being visible. There's a greater confidence.
We have to be champions of each other. We have to encourage one another. And we have to change the face of long-term care
and make sure that we push quality culture in long-term care.
Yeah.
The best and the brightest of people to come into this field.
Yeah. The greatest humanity I've witnessed in my life has been in skilled nursing facilities.
I achieved my purpose of making others feel good, just devoting my life to making people's lives better. I found my purpose. I found like what it means to me to be like a positive light in others. You can never be ashamed of the journey that you went on to get to where you're at today, because everything that you've learned through that journey makes you who you are.
Yeah. Thank you for your service. Thank you for the personal sacrifice and the commitment and the perseverance through what is a painful and a joyous process.
All right. Welcome to Our Purpose Podcast, the podcast where stories from skilled nursing and long-term care come to life. I'm your co-host, Kip Kruger, a voice shaped by experience inside the industry and a belief that every person has a purpose and the story is worth telling. I did it.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nailed it.
Yeah. Man, today I have our co-host and CEO of Principal Health. Thanks for joining us, Mr. James Dieter.
So happy to be here, Kev.
I'm glad you're here.
Did you guys coordinate your shirt colors?
We didn't.
But we look good though, right?
Yeah, Principal Blue, baby.
Principal Blue. We look good. And then I'm so glad that you're here.
Thank you. It's glad to be here.
It's my fellow friend, fellow administrator. We go way back.
We do. We have history.
This guy is probably the most eloquently spoken, most kind-hearted, like truly genuine people. That's a pretty good intro.
Does he say that to everybody?
No, he doesn't. That was you.
That was one. There's one and only Senior VP of Operations with HMG Healthcare.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here, Christian Reinarz.
Thanks for having me on the show. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah.
We talked about this months ago.
I'm excited. I've been excited. So when you first pitched this, I was like, oh, I cannot wait. Why I was texting you, hey, any word?
Yeah, I was actually in Houston, traveling back home to the Fort Worth area, and you called me or I called you.
I think you called me. I don't remember how the call happened, but then when you mentioned podcast, I'm like, wow, that's awesome. And then we went off on tangents of all the things we.
But thanks for being here late notice. I was like, hey, dude, we're filming in Houston. You're in Houston. Like, let's make it happen. So thanks for weathering the storm. It was super rainy, and you made it.
Yeah, I did. Thank you. Yeah, I had to miss my daughter's wedding and my son's graduation, but made it happen.
Well, we're
anything for you, Kip.
Dude.
Sacrifice.
We're glad you're here. Let's kick into it.
Yeah,
Christian, we've known each other for quite a while. I'm excited to hear where you've been, where you're going, the whole backstory. Dude, you're the most eloquently spoken person. Jump us off into it.
Well, again, just I want to say thank you for number one, having the podcast, the idea, the think tank of this, and putting that together. I think why I am so excited for this is that it's bringing an audience to long-term care, and it makes it a bit more visible and public, and that more people can see what's the talent and the beauty and all the great things that happen in long-term care. And for so long, it's been underappreciated, but also not visible. And I think that's what is exciting about these types of social media platforms, is putting it out there so more of these stories can be told. So thank you for that. And also thanks for the introduction, Kip. I have to, if we're doing the brotherly love thing, just that Kip has been a remarkable leader. And I think you already know that, but Kip and I cross paths working at the same organization together, Touchstone. And
the Enclave.
I tell you one thing,
Shout
you do
out.
not want to take over a building after Kip.
It wasn't that bad.
Come on now. Some big shoes to fill. I think to be very genuine though, and you've heard me talk highly of you, Kip.
You said one of the most kind things that I've heard in a long time.
Well, I don't remember what I said, but I know that the feeling behind what I say is what I always remember, and I don't know quite how to articulate it, but I say some things that are joking because it's funny, and then there's some truth behind it in that when I say you never want to take over a building after Kip, it's funny, but the reasons for it are just beautiful. For the fact that when you come into the administrator role, generally it takes you a few facilities to kind of cut your teeth and have exposure and grow your leadership skills. And so if you're as you get more time in long-term care as an administrator, you've taken over a few buildings, you start to gain some experience. But when you do take over a building, you're walking into somebody else's leadership style. And you're feeling that, you're seeing that, and you can learn a lot from that. You see the good things, you see the negative things, and you start to craft and create your leadership style based on some of the things that you've seen residually come over. And so for you, Kip, what was remarkable is after, first of all, I didn't take over for Kip because Kip didn't do well there. It was actually the opposite. It was coming into a building, which I had never done before, coming into a facility following a phenomenal leader. And that was my first experience seeing that. And I think why that had such an impact on me was that when you take over buildings, usually you're taking over struggling buildings, taking over buildings with maybe the staff have low morale, or maybe the quality of the care is low, or maybe there's a lot of patient complaints and grievances and things. And so that was what I was used to. And then walking into a building after Kip, I was entirely out of my comfort zone because my comfort zone would be, I would have a great relationship with the staff, and I would have considered that I was really great at those things. And then you take over after Kip, it's like, no, I was nowhere near as good at it as Kip was. And so I had to hear for months and months. Kip didn't do it that way. Kip would bring us donuts, and the patients.
We talked about donuts last.
I felt so bad and guilty for so long.
Did you bring donuts on Friday? I got
no, I never did. I was like, because it just wouldn't have been the same. It was like, there's only the Kip way. But I did mimic a lot of the concepts of that, which it's the you look at how affectionate the staff were to you. I think what anybody that's worked around Kip, the staple for Kip as an administrator in a facility is he's a visible leader, and not just visible but vocal, and not just vocal but has a level of being able to understand I guess the challenges and the successes of what the staff are saying, and taking the time and having the patience to listen to that. And so, that gains such an enormous amount of respect from the staff when they see their leader being visible. There's a greater confidence. There's a I guess more pride in their role and a desire to avoid failing. And so Kip created that. And then so that's just the staff side. Then you have the patient side, and the patients being a visible leader, family members love it because it invokes confidence that you know what's going on. You're in tune, you're in touch with the things that are happening in your facility. And so then when there is a complaint, or when there is something that is a concern,
it's actionable.
Exactly. And they know where to go, they know who to talk to, and they feel confident that it's going to get followed up on just by the visibility of it. And then when you have the patients that are calling their family members saying, the administrator was just in my room and talking and things like that. I mean, all those little nuances of leadership were phenomenal. And that's why I give you so much praise and compliment is, number one, I'd never seen that before in terms of coming into a building after somebody's great leadership And then how humbling that was of thinking I was pretty great until I had to take over after somebody that was great. It was like, oh gosh.
Well, I think HMG should come up with a training program. We'll call it the Kruger method.
We should.
The Kruger method. Just go straight through it.
Man, I like these podcast things. Let's keep it.
Kip's head get a little bigger every podcast.
I know.
I got to adjust my headset just a little bit. No, but thank you, Christian. That's very, very kind of you. I mean, the admiration goes both ways. It's very, very, very nice to have gotten through that with you, because that could have, on the other hand, it could have been the opposite. You know, the opposite feeling, like, I hate this guy, the whole thing. But I know you reached out to me numerous times, like, dude, you're killing it. And so, and not being, I feel like that's so important in long-term care is being champions of each other,
right?
In true fashion, because people do things well, and to not be conscious of that, I guess, in a negative way, and not take offense to that some people do a good job, and you can do a good job too. I think that we have to be champions of each other. We have to encourage one another. And we have to change the face of long-term care. And that's what it's all about.
Right? I mean, I think that go back to what you said earlier, the visibility of long-term care. I mean, if you go, I look back all the way in my lifetime. It started out, and I think the show was ER, right?
Yes.
It was like the first time you're really seeing inside the hospital.
Yeah.
It's like,
is that when they had the 911 with William Shatner?
Oh, that was
kind of same time.
Rescue.
That probably was after ER, but then, and then Grey's Anatomy comes out, and there's all these shows, and it's all really about acute care, and it's in an acute care facility, but no one's really highlighting long-term care. And I'm not sure that you have new nurses and people coming out and saying, my desire is to go straight into a skilled nursing facility.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think part of what we're trying to accomplish here is to shine a positive light on LTC.
Yeah.
Right. We want people to see what's going on in SNFs, and we want to make sure that we push quality culture in long-term care. We want the best and the brightest of people to come into this field. It's a lot of fun. It's incredibly rewarding. It's really, I think that if you were to look at a stereotypical nursing home on television, it's dark, it's small,
right?
There's 8-foot ceilings, and there's gorgeous facilities out there that are serving great meals and great people and good conversation. It's the more that I've even been surprised. We've been this for 10 years now, and the longer I get into long-term care, the more facilities I see, the more people I meet. There's just quality people all around. And I just think we need to expose that a little bit more.
Oh, 100%. And I'm sure we'll get into that more of that later. But that is, I think, one of the tragedies of long-term care. And some of it is deserved. And some of it is undeserved. And it's the undeserved that we're talking about, which is that there are so many talented people, and the type of work that is happening in these skilled nursing facilities is one of the greatest acts of humanity I've witnessed in my life. And I've seen the full spectrum of the worst of life and the very best. And I'll tell you that the greatest humanity I've witnessed in my life has been in skilled nursing facilities. And that's why I have such an interest in what you guys are doing here with this podcast, is highlighting the staff that are putting in, and you bring up the example of showing the glory that the acute setting gets, the acute setting being the hospitals, right? And through the TV shows, and it highlights all of these great and grand things. And so it gets a lot of that visibility. But the tragedy in that is that the long-term care doesn't, and there are reasons why it doesn't, and there are reasons why it has that reputation. But the tragedy of it is that you take, for example, the pandemic, and not to be disrespectful to healthcare workers that work in acute care, because working in healthcare across the board is a service that we all should be thanking healthcare workers for sure. And the difference I'm trying to highlight is, though, the long-term care healthcare workers get less visibility in the work and sacrifices that they make in that work. And so the pandemic was one of those that I personally walked away from that experience kind of mourning my messaging in my roles have always been, I'm sorry that it's this way. I'm sorry that you don't get that visibility, because you look at what we saw in the skilled nursing facilities. Family members were almost kind of locked out.
Yeah,
right.
They absolutely
were. So the patients didn't get to see. Remember, they had to talk to their family members, wave through windows,
and stuff.
or all these restrictions. But the staff became their family in those moments. That was their human interaction. And the staff, if you remember back, none of us knew what COVID was. We were trusting a lot of the information that was coming out in good faith, and it was scary at that time.
Absolutely.
And you had these healthcare workers that were leaving their homes, working insane hours, walking into an environment that they don't know if it would, they would bring that back to their homes and their families or not. And working in circumstances where short-staffed and limited resources and all of these things, and all those sacrifices go unseen.
Yeah.
And that's why I say to not to spend too much time on that, but this is why this is.
It's worth the conversation, though. Yeah. I mean, it's worth bringing up. At the end of the day, these folks are sacrificing a tremendous amount, and there's not much appreciation shown outside of the facility. And I think most people do a good job of appreciating them inside of this world, and this will probably stay in this world, but at some point, the more we can bring it out, the better.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the power of the media is really important in this, in that, most of the stories that get highlighted in the media are the negative ones, and very few are the positive ones. And so it kind of creates a misperception of disproportionalizing the negative,
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what we want to try to correct and get more of the positives out there. And
there's a story of I think it was a gerontologist here, and not too far from our corporate office here. And I think it was Texas City. There was a SNF out there, and it was this physician who used, I want to say it was ivermectin on his patients early on.
Yeah.
But it was a facility, a smaller facility. I think there were 70 beds, and it was 70 out of 70 people had COVID in his facility, and they were sick. And he saved all of them.
Every single
There
one.
were no deaths. And they were reported on. I remember reading one newspaper said, local doctor saved 70 lives, et cetera. And then there was about 10 of them said, doctor gives experimental drug, like just chastising him for what he did. That was so ridiculous. He suffered a lot more pain and scrutiny than he did praise. And that's the kind of stuff we need to get away from.
Yeah, I think that's why, as painful as this process is in the media of all the kind of the heated environment media is right now, I think it's actually a good thing, because hopefully it'll improve kind of what the coverage of that things get. And anyway, that was another unfortunate aspect of the pandemic is, how things were highlighted in the media and what we now know. But I was going to ask you, coming back to what you were saying earlier, Kip, I was going to ask you, because you were talking about, and I forgot how you said it, but leadership and how important that positive leadership is. So I was highlighting how it was coming and taking over after a great leader, but where did you learn those skills? I mean, what would you attribute for yourself? Did that come naturally to you? What were those nuances? How did you get that?
I would say it's a good question. I don't know if I've even thought about it. And I think the answer is, I feel like they just come naturally. I think I'm a people pleaser. Like, I want people to like me. That's obvious, right? I want people to like me.
Yeah.
And if you don't like me, that kind of bothers me a little bit.
Right.
And so with the administrator position, like, I achieved my purpose. I achieved the inner blessings of making others feel good. I went to the extent of, like, just devoting my life to making people's lives better.
Yeah.
There was a motivational speaker that I saw a long time ago. And he had some music playing, and he was doing chalk. And I think it was at a THCA event a while back. And he was doing a bunch of chalk with a bunch of music. And all of a sudden he made this lighthouse. And I have this lighthouse like tattooed on me today.
Really?
Because, and what he talked about, he's like, every interaction that you have on a daily basis, and this was early on in my career, and maybe that's where I got it from. Like, you can shine a light in their life. Like, you can make a difference. Like, you yourself can impact them in a positive way. Now, it's your choice whether you do it or you don't do it. And that was funny because after that, it was just a resonating moment in my life that I went up to him and I got, it was a massive, like, felt, whatever you call it. It was massive. Anyway, I put it in my garage.
Did you really?
I put it in my garage and I was like, dude, this is it for me. Like, I found my purpose. I found like what it means to me to be like a positive light in others. And they talk about a lighthouse being stable in a rocky environment, and a direction that people can look for, an area where no matter like what trials and tribulations are going through, and no matter how rocky or how uneven the sea is, the one thing that remains constant is the lighthouse. And I think that was a part of my early career that was like, hey, dude, like this is your opportunity. This is your purpose. And so may everything that you do, may everything that you say to the housekeeper, the CNA, the regional, like the owner, may it be a light. And I think what I thought was that in every interaction, I want them to turn around and be like, hey, that was a positive experience. Like that made me feel good.
Sure.
Because I think in every interaction that we make in the long-term care space or just in life in general, you can either go one of two ways. That made me feel really, really good, or that made me really, really bad. And so I wanted to generate kind of my energy towards that to be a light to others.
Yeah. So not to flip the script, but can I ask you a few questions? Because this leadership topic is very interesting to me.
Yeah.
So with that, do you feel like that there are advantages and disadvantages to? So when you attributed those nuanced skill set to kind of coming naturally, and then also coming from this core of a people pleaser, right? But it turned into positive interactions.
Sure.
Right. Do you feel like that there were advantages and disadvantages, or do you feel like it was all advantage?
Advantages and disadvantages. I think as I grew and as I matured, I'll go on record. I did a lot of things wrong. I didn't do everything right. Yeah. And so there may be some wonderful things that I've done, but there's also some things that I regret, some things that weren't perfect. And I think that comes a lot with maturity. I think the maturity of like, hey, yeah, you want to be a people pleaser, but you don't want to go out into a situation that like doesn't benefit everybody. And I think that through maturity and through knowledge and understanding of like, hey, you want to do this, but you have to do it. Like there is pros and cons of this. And so taking it to a certain level, I think that was super important.
Sure.
And just understanding and knowing like where you want to go with that. And I think it was definitely not all good, but it wasn't all bad either.
Do you feel like the good outweighed the bad? Or
100%. I would say I would not change a thing. I learned so much during the administrator process.
Sure.
And it allowed me to be where I'm at today. And so I think I talked to Brian Langan, who's also involved with PHS, and I was like, I feel like I'm far behind. And he's like, no, dude, you spent 12 years like crafting your art, like getting your experiences, like understanding where you're and you can never be ashamed of the journey that you went on to get to where you're at today, because everything that you've learned through that journey makes you who you are.
Yeah.
And I thought that was like resonating. I was like, okay.
Man, you got some really cool quotes there. So what do because you worked for several employers over the course of your administrative career. What was your experience? How did the employers view that skill set?
Good
from
question.
Your own
I like that.
perception? Because I'm sure, because now I have been on both sides, where I see it from a corporate level and I see it from the administrator level. So for you, what was your experience and how employers viewed that skill set?
Some championed it.
Mm-hmm.
They were like all on board, like go, run, fast as you can. This is great. And some others were like, we're going to put some handcuffs on you here or there. And so that was also a reason why I was just so blessed to be in the journey that I'm at now, is because I can freely express myself. I can get on a podcast and share, like, with maturity and the learned maturity moving forward, like, hey, like, you can do these things, and these things are good if you do them in the right way. And I think some companies got behind the 8 ball and should have, or I felt like they should have supported me a little bit more. But some of the other ones were just like, go for it, bro. Like, you got it. And I think I think that's a challenge in the long-term care space. It's like, where do you push? Where do you pull? Where do you give into? Where do you not? And kind of what do you do?
What would be your advice, though, because again, I'm asking what would be your advice to employers from your lens now with the experience that you have? Because now being out of it, this is also a very unique experience. You can look back and be reflective on, just like you did, of looking at the advantages and the disadvantages, and then also looking at how different employers viewed it, both positively and negatively. So now with all of that wrapped up, what would be your advice to an employer that is looking to try to shape a culture or to shape future leadership within an organization?
Understand who you have. I think that's so important. Understanding who you have and knowing that, like, during the interview process, like, hey, we're gonna get this like wild card, or we're getting something else, and knowing like where we're gonna put that wild card and knowing where we're gonna put that superstar, if you will. I'm not saying I'm a superstar, but knowing who you have and knowing where you need to place them in order for the greatest success for possible to happen.
So you're over a lot of administrators. I mean, how many buildings total?
So we have right now we have 33 skilled nursing facilities. We have a handful of assisted livings in there as well. And so,
how do you treat those? Is there somewhat of a cookbook at HMG, or did you say that you have a different type of policy or procedure for how you bring these guys on? And how do you take care of everybody?
Yes, that is the reason why I'm asking the question, is because that's essentially, I think, what all of us in long-term care are trying to do. And I would have to say that it probably is very similar across other industries as well, as trying to hone the right recipe in the hiring and the development process of leaders. And this is where I think the gap is in all industries. And we're one of those that has the same.
Can I say one thing before you say that? Be innovative.
Well, that's you're hitting it right on the head, which is, but that's one of the handicaps of long-term care is we keep repeating the sins of the past. And part of that is because we do have a lot of leadership and C-suite levels and ownership groups that have a long history in long-term care. And so things that are new or kind of foreign, there's a lot of resistance to that. And so that's where that's held us back in long-term care. And but I feel now, having been in it a while, I feel an energy shift in this. And I think so I'm optimistic about the future with this. So it's not still going to be easy or an immediate thing, but I feel like the tide is starting to turn, where now people are understanding we've got to look at this in an entire different light, this is why I'm, fortunate to be in the position that I'm in now. Is, I remember as an administrator always, having complaints about, the company and the owners of how they're operating. And then now getting into a role where listening to owners and what they're trying to achieve and bridge the gap of what the administrator's lens is. And that's why those lenses are really important, of what the different viewpoints are, and now trying to bridge that. But going back to what you were saying is, so one of them is the gap in industries is one, to your point, is how do we hire the right individual with the right set of skills specific to what that opportunity is.
Right.
And so our hiring practices tend to be more recipe book based. I'm going to follow the same recipe, hire a person using my same process and hire them for this role. But as you know, every facility is a different personality. It's almost individual like, right?
100%. It's
got a different personality. It's got all of these factors and characteristics and qualities that are very unique to that facility itself. So but in the interview process, I where I find a lot of employers make the mistake is they're using a generic template in the interview process, and then we use the generic template that when we are identifying that person's not working out in that facility, we tend to look at it on an employer side as, well, that person didn't do a good job there, or it's that person's fault, and I take issue with that. Because we have to own our own mistakes, just like you were saying earlier, of the things that we don't do well,
Sure.
which is why didn't that person work out there? Mm-hmm. I think it's avoiding the accountability of the failure of that, and not looking at the why. And if we took more time in the interview process, and I like your words, understanding who the person is, lining up their skill set, and okay, so maybe. The easiest hiring process would be hiring a great leader at all the great skills, and they're going to work in every situation. The reality is, try finding that consistently in the hiring process, right?
At scale, it gets really tough.
Correct. So, but somebody can grow into, I also believe that people can grow into the role. And so they may not bring every skill set specific to what that opportunity is. So then in your interview process, you're wanting to identify, can they grow into that? And if they can grow into that, now the responsibility of the employer is to develop an individualized training plan for that leader with some measurable objectives in that. And taking the time and I know that employers look at that as being, well, that's a lot of manpower, it's labor intensive and all these things. And so my argument is, you're right, it is. And first of all, but rightfully so. Because
if we're going to be great, it's going to be tough.
Right. Yeah. And if you're not doing it, it means that you're not really invested in the process, in the development and the outcome that you're trying to achieve at the facility level.
So I have two questions for you that parlay right into this. But one is, do you have one or two favorite interview questions?
My interviews are not the typical interviews. So I'm very conversational like this is.
Yeah, sure.
I've always been... So I guess to give context behind a lot of my responses are, coming into long-term care, I was in a line of work that was very different. It was very, it was very emergency services based, very emergency medicine, trauma background through firefighting, paramedic, SWAT tactical medic, and those things. And so then coming into the long-term sector, having had exposure to a lot of different types of situations and leadership styles, now coming into long-term care and seeing leadership styles here, has all that kind of background has developed something that is in most part unique. So when you ask questions like what my interview style is, I just take those experiences of my past and say, this is how my interview is. But what I've found that works for me is interviews, if you're using traditional questions, you can get traditional answers. If you use scripted questions, you can get scripted responses. But that's not really helpful in trying to make the best decision for what the position is. So let's have conversation. Yeah. Let's break down the barriers of it being formal, and let's just start talking. Yeah. Kind of like how this podcast is. So to start that off, usually it's like, hey, tell me what your favorite movie is of all time. Sure. Tell me something that's unique about you that is not work related. You could do 100 push-ups in 2 minutes, or you like to collect Matchbox cards. I don't know, but like, what is unique about you, and sparking some personal level to get somebody going in things that they like to talk about. And then you can see personality. You can start to learn more about the person in that. And so,
can you do 200 push-ups in a minute?
No. Today, no.
How many think you can do in a minute?
So we had to do, and you have to forgive me. I forgot for our SWAT our SWOT tests, if it was 1 minute or 2 minutes, because we had to do sit-ups in a timed period, and we had to do push-ups in a time period. And I always can't ever forget or remember if it was push-ups, it was 1 minute, and sit-ups 2 minutes, or if it was vice versa. But whatever it was, I did 100 in the time that was allotted. So that was at the time that was pretty good.
You mentioned earlier that you saw the worst in humanity. Was this during the SWAT time period?
Yeah, SWAT, law enforcement, and firefighting, being on a fire department, paramedic responding to things. It was just you in that environment. You have to unfortunately be exposed to the worst in humanity. Now, it's to give reverent respect to our service members in the military, and they're seeing that on such a larger scale than I did, but. So I can't ever put myself in that category, but enough of a picture to know what's out there.
And in that same vein, we're not too far since the Guadalupe floods. And you had some affected members of your team.
Yeah, we had one of our therapists in a skilled nurse facility. Her and her husband were missing, but they've since located them and found that they were two victims of that. And we just learned that.
It's devastating.
It is
devastating.
It's
have we seen anything like this in our lifetime? Because I mean, the numbers at 168.
Yeah, 168.
Yeah.
Have we seen? I've never seen anything like this in my lifetime.
At least not around here.
Yeah.
But the devastation of flood. My wife and I helped with the Wimberley flood in 2015, I believe. And just to see the mass devastation and the sheer force of those of water is unimagiable. I mean, literally trucks, like big trucks wrapped around trees. And it's just
it's unbelievable.
It is.
Thoughts and prayers
for sure. It's still very raw.
Yeah,
because they're still out trying to locate the missing. But yeah, our family was affected by it in terms of the HMG family, and it's a bittersweet experience. You get to see how the facility team is reacting to that. The bitter part is seeing them hurt. The sweet part is that they hurt. That she was that meaningful and made that impact. That they know her and feel that for her. So and her husband. So anyway, and as being in my capacity, I'm pretty removed from that. But it was great to see that, and also great that we get to. So HMG, one of the things that I'm not trying to be a commercial for HMG in this, but what I have to give them credit for is they do a phenomenal job, and I think this is their staple of doing things that are creative and innovative toward showing value and appreciation to their staff. And two ways that they do that. Number one, the most obvious way is they give out a card to the employee of the year.
I saw that.
I've never seen that before.
They got a card.
They give a free car.
They gave so the employee of the year gets the
employee of the year,
a brand new car. And this was my first year getting to see that. Like my eyes, I've heard of it. I heard the legends of it, but I got to see it with my own eyes this year, and
that's awesome.
That was well done. I saw that too on social media. That was really cool. I think I told Anna Pico at the HMG Cares Foundation. I think that was the next day. I was like, man, that was really cool to see. I think everyone rolled up. She was there. They put the car up, and then she was just so grateful, so thankful for just that.
But the other part, but that's the second one. The second one is that they do this foundation, and they do these fundraisers to get funds to go toward employees and their families for events specific like this. And again, they're doing it in such a at such a scale I've never seen that by an employer I've ever worked for. And so that's. Those are when you work for an employer and an organization that do those kinds of things. It makes it easy to work for, and also it gives you, allows you to be a bit more patient with their faults.
Sure,
their imperfections. So
the HMG Cares Foundation was pretty fancy. That was a great experience. I heard
was that your first one?
That was my second one. I heard they had a great DJ. That was
I think that's where they really nailed it. Was the DJ, and that was only my second one. But the first one was a little boring. The second one was like, wow.
Tell them.
You should have seen the line out there.
We're gonna have to get them a new headset, any bigger. Adam, do you have an extension? Jesus.
No, that was good. You did a great job there. But and thank you for participating in that.
Oh, it's great to be a part of something. Like everyone wants to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And it's nice to be invited to participate and to give back to a foundation that is going to give back to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, as it was fun to do, it was a pleasure to be a part of, and it was fun to be invited to. So
we appreciate it, and our staff appreciate that. And those are anyway. So thank you for.
So get back on track a little bit. So you said that you felt there's a change in the energy of the industry. What is your outlook? What is your temperament on just what's happening with SNF and what we should expect as far as it comes from legislation to 2020, the rest of 2025, 2026, is HMG looking to expand? I mean, what is the feeling around the business?
I think it's getting harder to expand. There's reasons for that. But so as we look to the future in long-term care, there's things that look very promising and things to be very optimistic about. And then there's things that are worrisome. When you look at the progression and evolution of healthcare in general and how it affects long-term care, let's just say the acuity levels in long-term care is growing because it's a reduced cost of care than the acute stay. And so that puts more reliance on long-term care. Well, so you take examples like that of how long-term care is having to progress and evolve to that level. And it's at a rate that, let's just call it X. But then you have a government regulatory entity that does not progress at the same rate, and that becomes a handicap. And that is a major obstacle that we're encountering right now, is that the government and the bureaucratic process works much slower than the rate of what happens in the real world and in what's happening in healthcare. And that's become really unfortunate because it's a barrier. And that's one of the reasons why it's making it harder and harder to expand and for facilities to become, for acquisitions to be successful is that, the expenses are another example that the rate that expenses are increasing is not equivalent to the rate that reimbursement rates are increasing. And so you have these these points in time where they're going to cross each other. And we want to avoid that. That's where we need the help of the regulatory body, the government portion of what they influence to be able to progress faster and to be more adapted to that. And part of that is, I think, on the government side, from my angle and lens point, is that it comes back to their perception of long-term care. If they don't see it as a high priority, or if all they're seeing and hearing are the negatives, then they tend to come down harder on us. And that's where the media has some responsibility in this, is if they disproportionalize the actual negatives that are coming out of these homes, then the response from the regulatory bodies is to come down harder on these long-term care facilities. And that's not necessarily the right answer. We do have to have rules. We do have to have regulations and things to help protect care, but unfortunately, they're becoming way too restrictive and challenging, making the environment more challenging. So, and if that remains the case, then you make acquisitions harder and you make development of long-term care harder, then it is going to reduce the quality of care. So you have less people coming in. It attracts less innovators, less talent, and so forth to come in, and less dollars to come in to be able to invest into a future of really growth and improvement in quality. So those would be the barriers. The things that I find that are exciting is that you see within ownership groups, everybody's kind of starting to look for the next greatest thing. And this is where I have to give some credit to Ensign and some other organizations alike. I think where Ensign has done a great job is they do things kind of so differently and have been so successful in that. And because it is public and other entities get to sit on the earnings call and listen to that, you now are seeing some ownership groups and investment groups starting to say, hey, maybe the way we've been doing things are not. Now you have some dynamic here where you have, well, let's mimic what Ensign does. And that's not necessarily the perfect recipe. Ensign is the master of that style because, they have a lot of years doing that style and experiencing that. And so for an organization to shift and to try to adopt that, it's very challenging. You saw that at some of our previous employers. And so what I do like from that type of thinking is, okay, well, let's take some of the concepts. Let's not copycat, but let's take some of the concepts behind that and see why that works.
Sure.
And then let's create something using the same concept, but create it in a way that we want, that fits into our culture and our values and so forth. And I think that's what I see as being exciting. And because of doing that, and what I also see being exciting is that now that social media, before we would see that if we were to do advertising campaigns or to try to get visibility in long-term care, it would have to be free visibility, right?
Yep.
Because most companies are not going to pay for commercials. They're not going to pay for billboards. I mean, all those things were really being scrutinized, right? And so now we have social media where advertising is very minimal in costs and can get a very large audience. And people starting to capitalize on that, I think, is really great. So by doing that, we can attract in a lot more talent into the industry, specifically into these leadership positions, where that gives us some diversity of thought, diversity of backgrounds, of skill sets that are coming in, and now employers have to know how to take that thinking and kind of the varying backgrounds and be able to grow that within. And I think as we get better leaders within organizations and facilities, we'll start to get better care, because the staff that are at the where the work happens, like that are doing the actual work of what we do, they need and deserve great leaders.
Absolutely.
And they've been underserved. And what I will be quick to say is it's not that we can point a finger and say it's somebody's fault. It's just that we recognize that that's the case of the present. So now let's get moving on creating a new future for them. So
I think social media has played a huge role in that. Social media, as I see a lot of people using their platform to look what we're doing for Mother's Day. Look what we're doing for Father's Day. Some really cool stuff using the TikTok, the whole, all the things. I think there's a lot of facilities doing a really, really good job, and I see that as an important role. Like you have to do it now. I think in the last 5 to 10 years, it was optional.
Yeah.
Now I think it's mandatory that you have to have a decent social media presence for both marketing and advertising, and also recruitment standpoint. I think you have to have it.
Well, this is also where, again, to inflate your ego, I felt like you were a pioneer.
This is my favorite podcast so far.
I'm going to go get a cup of coffee.
Yeah, I know. This is bromance. But in seriousness, though, I do feel like you're a pioneer in this aspect because you were starting your own TikTok page. And I don't know, you'll know better than I do how far-reaching that was. I just know that somehow, some way, Kip's videos kept popping up in my page, and watching that and thinking, the initial reaction was just jealousy. Like, gosh, dang it, how did he think of that? But it's brilliant. But it's also untapped, and that's a good example of outside of the box thinking that's foreign and that most organizations are nervous about, scared of, or not comfortable with. And so, but you had the courage to do it, and you have the personality, you have that skill set to do that. And I think that's it's removing barriers. And the podcast is another one. So I mean, you guys, I love that. Sorry, I've praised that enough, but seriously. So those are the optimistic things that I see, and that being so available to facilities and to leaders. And as we use those skills, then we'll get more visibility to where the work actually happens.
Yeah, we love that. What other initiatives are you guys working on right now? Is there anything in particular, something tactical that you could share? I mean, a big part of what we're trying to do here is share great ideas.
Yeah, I mean, so
except the really good ideas you want to keep for yourself.
Well, I mean, yes and no. Here's the way I look at it: is I look at organizations like Apple and Google and others where not being afraid to share their great ideas.
Yeah.
Because you're going to, I can come up with a great idea and I might talk about it here strategically. But the thing is we're going to implement it our way.
Sure.
You're going to hear the idea and you're going to implement it your way. And if it's successful for you and it's successful for us, we've just improved something.
Yeah.
And so for me to try to be guarding of that, now, obviously, anything that's proprietary, I can't.
Sure.
But I would just say, we're all looking in the same direction. Is how do you take the dynamic of what the environment that we have today and all the constraints, and how do we still improve care? And I think that's why our focus on leadership is so important right now. Is I think what everybody's realizing is the way we hire, the way we look for leaders, because, and I don't mean to, I want to be careful because I'm not trying to overemphasize and create this hierarchy of roles, but leadership, we look at leadership position as having a lot of responsibility. And we tend to, historically, we've looked at this responsibility as being the technical skills of you've got to manage your expenses, you've got to get good rates and blah blah, all these things, right? But this is why I'm asking you the questions that that I was asking you is, okay, but you can have somebody that's technically strong and delivering results technically,
sure,
but yet not succeeding in these skill sets, right? And so then it creates a dynamic of, as an organization, which do we value more, the technical skill or the soft skill? And every organization is going to find the right mix of that. It's a Venn diagram of how, putting that together where we want and kind of an equal dynamic of that. And but we've been too fixated on this one.
Yeah.
And not just fixated, but then the way that we handle that process of, if you're not performing in this area, then we execute accountability or we move you on. And in a lot of cases, that's just snowballing the effect of poor quality care because we're turning over key leadership roles, and we're not taking responsibility for that. And then we're then turning all of that attention toward that leadership position, the title of it, and saying that position's failing us. And so we're kind of talking out of two sides of our mouths when we're looking at some of these key leadership roles of saying, hey, we want you to do these things. But we want to, for example, we want you to, let's just take the administrator role as an example. We want administrators to think of themselves as CEOs, and we want them to execute executive level thinking as if they're the CEO of a facility. But wait, you've got to call us for these approvals. You've got to, you can't make this decision without this. And we put all these handcuffs on. And so it is a contradiction of this. And so but we put our focus to they're failing, and we are failing. We are failing in how we're handling that. And we've really got to be able to check the ego. So that was one of the things that you had said at the beginning, where think about it as ego awareness.
Sure.
And I look at organizations as being human-like because they're human-run organizations. And so an organization is going to mimic human behavior. And so that means that a human or organizations can have egos too, right? So then if your organizational ego is so high that you can't take self-ownership and accountability in some of the practices that you're doing, recognizing the trend, then you're not going to get better. Yeah. You're not going to improve the care. And but the unfortunate casualty of that is that leaders themselves will think they failed. And there's a portion of them that maybe it did, but it's also over proportionalized in that they think they don't realize how much the employer influenced their ability to be successful in that role and put them in a bad spot by not either giving them the support or developing them in the way that was needed. And so that's what we want to change. So when you're saying what are some of our strategic initiatives, it's that we've put extra emphasis in the ways that we think are best in trying to put more attention on leadership development. So if you want me to get specific, some of those ways are, number one, we've developed what we call as the HMG U Academy. And
is this kind of like the Kruger method?
Oh, yeah.
Somewhat.
Well,
but better.
It started out with wanting to help facilitate CNAs progress in their nursing path. So it started out, hey, if you want to be an LVN, we'll pay for your schooling. But your commitment back is obviously to give us more time in the job and so forth. But we want to invest in you and progress you along, because now we're investing in our future leaders, right? Mm-hmm. And then it started to evolve into, well, if we're only doing that for CNAs and nurses, why can't we do that for some of these other roles, like an activities director or an activities assistant wanting to become an activities director, or how about a charge nurse that wants to be a DON? Or somebody that wants to go through the AIT process is, well, why don't we put a university around this?
Yep.
Why don't we create curriculums?
Love this.
So we've partnered with actual universities for curriculums that are on a leadership path. So we've developed an online university in career leadership, personal development. And so we have those that they can also get CEUs for. And then we've also partnered with other universities where they can go on a university campus and receive, lecture type of academic development. And then HMG pays for that through the course of the progression of their development. And that's our way of investing into that. And we've got other things, but that's really kind of, that is where we've put a lot of our focus is, okay, we've got to take ownership in our interview process, our hiring process. And then we've got to fully show that in the way we invest into people through their development.
Well, awesome. I love that. Yeah. So we have a PACER program, what we call it. And it's very similar it's just a constant development program. And we launched a new one this year, a part of PACER, where we're actually trying to figure this piece out. Mm-hmm. How do you continue to get people into management and even switch roles? Like, how do you become an X-ray technologist? How do you become a sonographer? How do we take you out of a sessioning position at, X dollars per hour, so where you can, double, triple your income, and become, a skilled licensed professional. So I have a lot of questions for you about this.
Okay. I'd love to talk about it. But that brings me to what the major gap in leadership development is. Which is, if you look at historically, and again, this is across all industries, is that generally people get promoted into leadership positions because they've demonstrated extraordinary skill in a technical skill set.
Yep.
And then we put them into a leadership role where now they have to manage people.
Different skill set.
Correct. But then in that role, what are we doing to develop their ability and that skill set in these soft skills? Because the conversion, here's where the majority of people will fall into is the person that is the master of the technical skill struggles with a transition of now having to teach that.
Yeah.
Because the impatience of it is, well, I can just do it faster and better myself and to the degree, and I can trust the result I'm going to get if I do it myself. And then they create this cycle of not setting themselves up for success because now they don't know how to do that. They don't have the people skills to do that, and so that's where the employer's responsibility comes in. Is okay, great. We're good at identifying people that have a great technical skill, but before we put you into a supervisory position, let's see how well you can work with others. Or let's, if we are going to put you in the role, now let's give you the training of the soft side of how do you manage people, and develop them that way. So that's the. I have some secret sauce in that aspect.
That's huge. That's a big one.
That's the part.
I mean, we hold a summit every year and do a 2-day on-site training with some of our leadership, and it's a lot about emotional intelligence.
Yeah,
because some people get it and some don't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's one of the biggest challenges of management is how do you get folks these soft skills?
Correct.
Big
time.
It's
so that's what. I think that's where we need to, organizations have to be nimble enough, I think, to try to capitalize on all that, right? I mean, if you look at organizations, our constant endeavor is to optimize.
Yep.
Optimize the operation, right?
Yep.
And so, but we see an incredible inefficiency in our, let's just say, our human capital management. And so, I guess the ideal, perfect place to be is, hey, we don't want to lose the person with the extraordinary technical skill set.
Yeah.
But we're putting them in leadership roles, and then we end up losing them, right? Outside of the entire organization.
Yeah.
Okay. So we might find that there's a group of people that are not comfortable in the soft skills and may not be successful in a leadership role because of them not being comfortable with the soft skill set. Okay, but we don't want to lose. We still want to capitalize. If we're looking at it, take all the emotional level out of it, we still want to have that employee remain within the organization, continue to show them value, continue to help them develop in a way that keeps them interested, right, and excited about the work. But it doesn't mean we have to promote them into a leadership role and lose them. And that's but then there's going to be a group of people that want that soft skill set.
Mm-hmm.
And then those are the ones we want. So how do you help both categories be successful, and how do you keep them in an organization? And now you're getting optimized.
Yeah, that is the question.
Yeah. Yes.
I like it. That's the purpose.
There you go.
Our purpose. James?
I'm good.
Christian?
Yeah, I'm good.
It's been a pleasure. It's been great.
Hopefully I didn't overwhelm you guys too much.
No, it was our longest podcast so far, and it felt like 10 minutes.
How long did we go?
An hour.
Right at an hour.
Did we? Holy cow.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
I close by saying thank you. I appreciate the kind words you said. They're definitely the bromance was real on this one. But it's great to have someone come on the show and share like their true purpose. And I could tell just by how intense you are and how intentional you are with your words, that your purpose is real. You're going to make a huge impact in many lives. I know you've already done that at HMG. And I'm excited to get you back on in a couple months and see how things are progressing. And it's just nice to see a fellow administrator who has just a strong drive and a purpose for life. It's not an easy job. And thank you for sharing your experience and your backstory behind the things that you've done. And we appreciate your purpose. We appreciate you coming on Our Purpose podcast. It's great to hear from you today.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. I'll come back anytime. And can I maybe give one message to your audience for those that are listening? Because we're talking about long-term care, which I want to echo your guys' words, which just an expression of gratitude for your service. Thank you for your service. Thank you for the personal sacrifice and the commitment and the perseverance through what is a painful and a joyous process. And so for all those out there that listen to the podcast and are in long-term care, we know none of us are perfect and have, to your point, where we've done some things well, some things not so well. But the patients that we serve, it's so meaningful and important to them and their family members. And so just the perseverance and enduring and the sacrifice and all those things, I want to always be able to express gratitude to everybody in this work and say thank you for that. Yeah. And I wish you can hear that a lot more often in the future. So
to be champions of each other, collaboration over competition, I think that's important. And just being good people to each other and shining each other's light. I think that's what's going to make and drive long-term care to higher levels.
For sure.
Amen.
Awesome.
Ladies and gentlemen, this was Our Purpose Podcast. James Dieter, Christian Reinarz. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening. Until next time, much love.
Awesome.
Thanks.